So our ancestors, the only light they truly had was the sunlight and a little bit of fire, right? At nighttime could be light. And so we have some ganglia in the back of our eyes that have nothing to do with vision. They just sense blue light. So that's why a lot of blind people can have normal circadian rhythms for this reason. And once the blue light goes down, as you said, that triggers through this circuitous pathway going through the SCN, and then the pineal gland secretes melatonin. Melatonin secretes GABA, like I was saying. The GABA then causes GABA increase, and then GABA slows down the neocortex. And that leads to a whole cascade that takes 2 to 3 hours to work before we really feel sleepy. But the things that happen with the circadian alignment is the secretion of melatonin in a predictable schedule, the secretion of GABA in a predictable schedule, the timing of the neocortex slowing down, and then our body temperature drops because we didn't have HVAC, right? The secretion of GABA, like I said, leads to the slowing down of the neocortex. If you can excite yourself past that, right? If you've ever been so tired, you wake up in the morning, I'm just going to go to work and come home and go to sleep. And then your friend talks you into going to happy hour, you drink some CNS depressants, and all of a sudden you're stimulated and you're wide awake, right? Because you've just overcome that GABA effect anyway. So the circadian alignment is super important, because people think that when we shift our circadian rhythm, we're shifting all the circadian rhythm of all of our cells. That's not true. So every cell has a biological clock, right? Every cell has a circadian rhythm. It's doing different things at night. It's doing different things at sleep time. It's doing during wake time. And so we can entrain ourselves to go to sleep in alignment with the rest of our cells, or we work night shift and we keep our brains awake when our cells are saying, no, we're doing sleep stuff. And I think that's where that mismatch is what causes the damage and the shortened life expectancy and all that. So the circadian rhythm is one important part to make us go to sleep. That, of course, if you're aligning with the sun, that's going to be very consistent. So consistency matters a whole lot with that. The other thing that matters a lot is what we call sleep pressure. And that's just adenosine, right? So ATP to ADP, AMP, and just A. And that A is like telling our brains, hey, man, we've burned it down. Like, it's time to go to sleep. Like, we need to rest. So men tend to be more muscular than women. Men build up sleep pressure a lot better than women. Men usually go to sleep even when they're stressed out. They crash. They do one sleep cycle, and then they wake up because their stress hormones are high. But we need the adenosine for the sleep pressure. That's one thing that's driving us to sleep. And then the circadian alignment is the other thing that's driving us to sleep. And then the sleep environment, of course, is allowing us to maintain sleep.
Discuss it, because I know there's always fights between men and women about how cold they want the bedroom, and what does science say is the best sleeping temperature?
The primary difference there is body mass, and so women are just cooling off faster than men. The core temperature going down about 1 degree Celsius, so about roughly 2 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a pretty big drop in core temperature. If you've ever, like when I was a SEAL and we dove in cold water a lot, they're super worried about a core temperature that went down 3 degrees. That was hypothermia, and you could affect your. So it's actually a pretty big decrease. And what they found research wise is it's somewhere around 64 degrees Fahrenheit that people tend to sleep well. Of course, that can vary depending on like how spongy your mattress is, because that holds heat in, how many covers you have on you, and things like that. But that seems to be 64, 66 degrees seems to be the sweet zone in the research. So I went to like really conventional conservative databases like Cochrane database, right? And whatever, Google Scholar and this PubMed and things like that. And I just looked up what supplements have been proven to affect sleep. And then once you learn enough about sleep, you go, okay, there's actually nothing surprising about that, right? So like I said, you have that initial trigger of melatonin, which is like the starter pistol that starts this cascade of hundreds of neurotransmitter changes throughout your brain, throughout different regions of your brain, throughout the night, everything's cycling around. So it's a really complex mess, what all melatonin changes. But like I said, one of the first changes is this big increase in GABA, slowing down the neocortex, right? And so all I put in my supplement, which is what was proven to work by the databases, right? It was like everything that helps you produce melatonin, right? So tryptophan becomes 5-hydroxytryptophan. Mm-hmm. You need magnesium and vitamin D3 as cofactors to turn 5-HTP into serotonin. Serotonin becomes melatonin. Then we needed GABA. GABA doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier super well. So you take L-theanine, which enhances the efficacy of GABA, what does cross into the brain. And that was pretty much it. Later on, I figured out, you've probably seen the research for like lactate threshold and VO2 max and so forth, that phospatidylserine can enhance that because it lowers cortisol and norepinephrine, stress hormones. So cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine. And so I added that because so many people have sleep problems. A lot of people, research will show that people will have an increased subjective increase in sleep quality and duration when they use THC. However, tachyphylaxis is super quick with that. So you end up on about 10 times as much THC in 30 days than what you started with. But objectively, if you do a polysomnograph on them, their quality of sleep goes down significantly. The CBDs do actually seem to be somewhat promising, and that they can both enhance duration and quality, and you don't seem to accommodate to them nearly as quickly. So you can, and I think one's called CBD2. I don't know a whole lot about those, but it's called a CBD2, CBD2 and CBDN. I don't know what the N stands for, honestly, but those have both been shown to improve both subjective and objective quality of sleep. But it's not huge. It's 10%, 20%, something along those lines. And then as far as the things that you can do to improve your ability to go to sleep, what we touched on earlier, and actually you asked earlier and I forgot to say, part of that consistency of going to sleep at the same time to get the highest quality is also dependent upon the activities that you're doing during the day being somewhat consistent. If I work out right before bed, if I work out 2 hours before bed and I just really go in there and hit it hard, I'm spiking my stress hormones hugely to get to that workout. I'm going to have a harder time going to sleep versus, and that's actually, to answer your question, that's actually one of the tools we can use for jet lag. If I'm going somewhere where bedtime is going to come before I want it to come, I can work out late in the day. I can put bright lights in my eyes late in the day. And I can actually stimulate my adrenals to raise my stress hormones to push my bedtime further away from me. And like I said, you can do about half an hour to an hour a day. If you're going across 6 time zones for 2 days, you're going to be screwed up the whole time. In fact, you're probably better just staying on your other time zone, your home time zone if you can, because you can only adjust about 1 time zone a day. And that's at best. But you adjust it by, if I put bright lights and exercise early in my day, I bring bedtime closer. If I do it later in the day, I push bedtime away from me. And those are really the only 2 things we have.